Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Lam here. In today's episode, I want to talk a little bit about branding, specifically for Canon, Nikon, and Sony. Hopefully, I'll get to Sony if the video doesn't get too long. But the reason why I want to bring this up is that Canon just released firmware for the Canon R5. I'll go ahead and put it up here because there is quite a lot of things that they improved upon the camera, and it's something that I've always advocated for. Nowadays, we just kind of assume our devices will continue to get better, and with these firmware updates, we're seeing continued improvements on the R5, which is excellent. But one of the things that I've noticed with the camera mirrorless cameras, the brand itself, is that they really can't get away from the Canon cripple hammer meme, which is something that's kind of attached itself to the brand. And the reason why I want to talk about this is the degree of cynicism that kind of comes with the community here on YouTube is really starting to spread, because you notice that people are using it everywhere. People are kind of asking questions about it, and they link it to funny videos, and they are legitimately funny because we've gone through several generations of mirrorless cameras where we've seen this effect happen, and people are finding different ways to poke fun of it, and it's not very healthy for the brand itself. A lot of times people will get angry about a camera brand and they will criticize it. You know, when you work inside a company like that, you're kind of used to that, because if you've ever worked in the help desk, that kind of vitriol, you just get desensitized to it, because people, you know, they'll call in, they'll be angry, and eventually you just won't care because you deal with it so often from day-to-day life. But when it starts becoming a meme and people start laughing at it and people kind of grow up just poking fun at a camera brand, that's going to last for generations. We have a lot of photographers and videographers on the, front half of their careers, in which they're growing up with all of these conceptions about what the camera brand is. But once it becomes ingrained into the culture of that brand, they're not going to be able to easily remove it from the brand, and it's something that's going to stick with it. Take, for example, this firmware update. I think legitimately it was a good firmware update. It was a good improvement in multiple fronts. But if you look at the comments on a lot of these, they still continue to talk about the Canon cripple hammer and kind of make fun of it and poke at it, even though legitimately I think this is a really good step, and hopefully there will be continued firmware updates to improve the camera even more, because the whole meme thing, the Canon cripple hammer thing, it's starting to get really sticky, and once it starts really sticking, they're pretty much stuck with it for an entire generation. Now, if we flip it over to Canon's longtime rival Nikon, they kind of have a different problem. Nikon has always been a very balanced company. In other words, when they make their cameras, they make them very balanced. They really think through the entire process, and I've always enjoyed using Nikon cameras. Now, the current challenge for Nikon is, with the current economic situation, I don't think you can just create a very good, well-rounded camera and still be able to compete with a shrinking market. They've always been known to have really excellent cameras, and I think the last time they really made a big splash was when they came out with the D800. Now, the D850 was definitely an excellent camera, and it definitely built on top of it, but those really high megapixel cameras kind of set it apart for a very long time. The issue that I see is that they've never really built upon that success. Yes, they had really good successor cameras, but they never continued to really innovate past that 36 megapixel camera that really set it apart. They had some really great crop sensor cameras like the D500, but again, they never continued to push that edge to really continue to innovate on that. And what I'm seeing here when I talk to people is that yes, they are very good cameras, but they're really not generating any excitement for the newer audiences or the newer content creators. There's really nothing for them to kind of latch onto to say they are the market leaders in this, and this is the reason why I'm sticking with this system. And that's something that they're fundamentally missing right now. There's nothing really exciting about Nikon cameras. They make very good cameras, and they're solid, and they're definitely very usable, and you will enjoy using them, but there's no excitement around that camera. Take, for example, the Z50. It's a very good camera, really enjoyed using. I think it has a lot of terrific characteristics, but there's really nothing that exciting about it. There's nothing that I can kind of talk to somebody to get them excited about wanting to use that camera. And without that excitement, it becomes very difficult for anybody to kind of recommend that camera. When you look at Nikon, they predominantly have focused in on the photography, and it's something that has served them well. The problem is with the newer generation, when they're selecting cameras, even though they might not use those advanced video features that people are packing into their camera systems, they still want it to be there. Exciting new features that really catch the eye. And again, I think a lot of people, when they buy mirrorless cameras, they're never going to fully use all of those video features. But if you're going to be spending this type of money, you want those features to be there. So finally, let's talk about Sony. But before we actually get into their mirrorless camera bodies, I do want to talk about their smartphones. For those of you who don't remember, they spent a significant amount of resources really trying to break into the smartphone market because it was a growing segment and it's definitely making a lot of money. I'm sure we all know that. They really wanted to compete with Samsung, but they never really broke through. Their camera line never really took hold, and that was one of their probably biggest failures when it comes to Sony as a company. Now, they do want to get into content creation, and the mirrorless camera body allows them to do that. This is the reason why when they got their foothold into the mirrorless camera market, they definitely were very aggressive. They continued to invest heavily, and they continue to push the market in terms of technology because they really want a segment that they can grow for content creation, really capture the market for the younger generation. Now, we know that Sony likes to be the technology leader. They really are aggressive in pushing in new technology, pushing in new software that will advance that technology, and they continue to do so. Anytime another camera manufacturer brings out a technology that's better, they really respond very quickly with a new camera body. And we as consumers have benefited from that greatly because camera manufacturers definitely have to respond to Sony's aggressive technology pushing. If you think about it, over the last couple of years, the features that are being put into these cameras are just continuing to grow more quickly. They're getting a lot better. They're making it a lot easier to use. They're definitely also listening to the users because they know that the market is shrinking. So listening to the users, capturing that loyal base is extremely important. And I definitely attribute some of this to Sony's aggressive marketing and also their push into more advanced technology. The last thing that I want to talk about before wrapping up this video is that Sony has been really good at capturing their loyal base and keeping them happy and keeping them excited, because they're constantly rolling out with new features, new camera bodies, and now they're capturing that third-party support so that there are cheaper lenses that are still very good quality for their Sony systems. It's really starting to flesh out to be a great ecosystem, and they also have content creators that are very young, and they're constantly bringing in new people into the Sony ecosystem. It's definitely been very interesting to watch the rise of Sony, what they have done in this short period of time. As a history buff, it's always interesting to see how markets change because they can change very rapidly over the course of just a couple of years, and we'll see whether or not these trends continue to happen, and hopefully we can find a solution to get more people into using mirrorless cameras so that we can prevent the shrinking of this market, because it's something that I really enjoy, and I'm sure everybody who's watching this, you enjoy this, and you definitely don't want to continue to see the market shrinking. It's definitely a problem for all of the camera manufacturers. We just aren't growing fast enough, and it's something that we're going to have to really come together and solve very quickly. Otherwise, you will start seeing more camera manufacturers going out of business, and that's something that I don't think any of us really want to see. But hopefully you found this interesting. That's all I have to talk about for this week. Definitely let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to talk to you. Until next week, I'll see you in the next video.